Assalamu alaikum, class 7. Welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to pleasantly surprise you by the fact that we are going to study a very interesting poem together. I thought, why not take a break from English language and switch over to English literature instead? So without losing any time, let's start with our class. So I've selected this poetry titled Piano by D.H. Lawrence. I found this very short yet very thoughtful and emotional. I'm sure you all can connect to this poetry too. Okay, so this first slide highlights the learning targets of our class today. The first point, we will be talking about some facts about the author, D.H. Lawrence, and some poetry techniques in detail, which will cover a lot of new terminologies and stanza explanations one by one, like we used to do in our class. The use of symbolism and imagery in the poem, how do we use them, why do we apply them, and some difficult words which we always used to write on the board, learn them, devise their meanings, and construct sentences so we are more familiar to them. And last but not the least, some important insights about the poem. Here we have some key facts about the author's life and his background. As you know, we are already provided with sufficient information about authors after every chapter in our ORCs, Oxford Learners, and but this is just a quick overview of some facts. I'll just go through them about his life. He was a famous English novelist, poet, playwright, essayist, literary critic, and a painter as well. And he was basically born into a poorly educated family, not so well off, just a normal working class family. And he later became a teacher, and this is where he started writing poetry and short stories, and this is how this collection of his poetries came across us as audience. Okay, a poem can be very easily understood and comprehended if a summary or an analysis is read prior reading the poem itself. So here I have a very precise summarized extract of the poetry in a very easy day-to-day language, so it's easier for you all to understand what is going on and what the poem is all about actually. I'll be reading through this. The poet listens to a woman's song. A woman is introduced in the picture as well. If you look it up in your ORCs, it reminds him of his childhood memories. When he was a child, he used to sit under the piano and press his mother's feet while she sang songs. The woman sings extremely well, but it couldn't draw the attention of the poet as he is immersed, he is indulged, he is busy with his boyhood days, meaning the early days, his childhood days. In winter season, they used to sing hymns. The letter N is silent in this word. We will come later and dig into the meaning of this word, new word. They used to sing hymns in a comfortable private room with the guidance of a piano. They used to sing songs and hear the songs in a private confined room. They used to enjoy the evenings. The poet lost his manhood in the flood of his memories, and he cries for the past like a kid, like a child. So basically it is devising a very sad and a gloomy mood of the poet himself as he remembers his old days, and he doesn't want to forget them. And he has lost his present. He's not enjoying his manhood, his present days, as he always wanted the old days back. Before reading the actual poetry, we've already gone through a synopsis kind of thing in the earlier slide, a summary. Now you all have an idea of what the poetry is all about. And now if I ask you to brainstorm your ideas and get into the mood of the poetry, and if I ask you, think about a song which you liked or loved in your childhood, how did it make you feel then? Can you recall? Think about a song that reminds you of happy times, or maybe sad times, or anyone associated with it. Because music is the key, and music helps you get in touch with your past. Piano by D.H. Lawrence. Softly in the dusk, a woman is singing to me, taking me back down the vista of years till I see A child sitting under the piano in the boom of the tingling strings and pressing the small, poised feet of a mother who smiles as she sings. In spite of myself, the insidious mastery of song betrays me back till the heart of me weeps to belong to the old Sunday evenings at home with winter outside and hymns in the cozy parlor, the tinkling piano our guide. So now it is vain for the singer to burst into clamor. With the great black piano appassionito, the glamour of childish days is upon me. My manhood is cast down in the flood of remembrance. I weep like a child for the past. This slide shows us the rhyming words and the rhyme scheme of the poetry. It's very important to read the poem thoroughly as the requirement lies. This helps you as a reader to pronounce the words and the verses very clearly and identify the rhymes wherever they lie. So after every stanza, there is an indented line which highlights the rhyming words, and I have selected a color scheme specifically which makes it very easy to you to spot on the rhyming words within the verses. The first set, the first stanza, the first two words, me and see, are rhyming, and the second set is strings and sings. Whereas the second stanza, dark blue, the words are song and belong. You can even pronounce them to yourself. You will recheck it. And the second set is outside and guide, which is in dark green. Finally, the last stanza, again, the words in the purple, clamor and glamour. You may check out the pronunciation as the dictionary shows beneath. It's even written in that font. And the second set is cast and past. Coming to stanza 1, I hope you remember this term stanza. Stanza refers to a series of lines arranged together, usually in a pattern of rhyme. Now you have to activate your imaginary skills throughout the stanzas, because this requires a lot of imagination where you have to actually feel what the poet is trying to say and trying to make you imagine how he felt. Starting with the first stanza, softly in the dusk a woman is singing to me. So the first line beneath it explains speaker is actually listening to piano and he recalls his past simply. Taking me back down the vista of years, taking me back to the series of years, to the number of years, to many years behind, until I see a child sitting under the piano. So he recalls himself sitting under the piano. In the boom of the tingling strings. So here's the twist. Now notice the words softly, the first word of the stanza, and this boom. These two words contrast in meaning. These both words are opposite in their nature in terms of music. And pressing the small poised feet of a mother who smiles as she sings. So small poised feet, what do these words denote? These denote a very soft and a sensitive feeling, a sense of closeness with your mother, what he felt. An aura, and it further describes the woman's aura and grace of her beauty, how well she's singing and how well she is actually going with the rhyme. And here, the last point, the metaphor of vista of years compares to the events of his life, a long road which he took from his early childhood to until what he has reached now. Similarly, coming to stanza 2, in spite of myself, the insidious mastery of song. Now, in spite of myself means beyond my control. The insidious mastery of song, beneath you have the meaning, the subtle effect of the music, the undue effect of the music which is affecting him, betrays me back. It takes him back. It gives him an uncomfortable feeling, till the heart of me weeps to belong to the old Sunday evenings at home. Everyone knows, I hope, what weeping means. Weeping means crying. So his heart cries to actually go back to the old Sunday evenings he used to have at his home, with winter outside and hymns in the cozy parlor You can imagine, see, activate your imaginary skills. There's snow outside in that country where he resides, and it's quite cozy and comfortable in the room inside, and both mother and son are enjoying the song and their relationship with each other. The tinkling piano, our guide. So the piano guide, meaning the music which was their guide. The whole aura, the whole atmosphere actually is very warm and home settling, and the theme actually, the first line which here says, moves from happy to bittersweet, which means happy was the theme of the first stanza. Remember, a woman being described and how he's enjoying the baby, his early childhood days, mother playing the piano. It's a happy, happy theme. Now, suddenly in the second stanza, the theme changes to bittersweet. Why? Because all of a sudden he feels like crying, he feels like going back. This is the turning point of the poem. The final stanza, here the theme drastically changes into a very sad theme, from happy to bittersweet to sad. And the verses go like, so now it is vain for the singer to burst into clamor. He is denoting himself. So now it is useless. It's useless for the singer to burst into clamor. Clamor means noise, to burst out crying so much with the great black piano appassionato, that along with the piano playing, obviously the piano is playing the music, and with that sound, the poet also wants to cry. The glamour of childish days is upon me. The glamour, the beauty, the grace, the charm of his childhood days is on his head. It's not going. He's actually remembering and crying upon it, and he is expressing that his manhood, his present day, is cast down in the flood of remembrance. It's actually running down his cheeks in the form of tears. Flood of remembrance. He's crying. He's comparing all these terms to his feeling. I weep like a child for the past. And beneath this stanza, a small explanation is there also. You can go through it. However, I've gone through the points, skimmed through them. Overwhelming longing, the last point. Tears, as I said earlier, compared to the flood. The flood, obviously, when you cry so overwhelmingly, it indicates the strength of his emotion, destroying his pride, destroying whatever he had all his life. Now he couldn't hold it. He's just crying. Now that we have gone through the different phases of the poetry, it's equally important to evidently understand the literary tools that any poet uses to help convey his feelings or his mood or the tone across to us as readers very effectively. That's how we are able to understand what the poetry actually means. Now the question is, how do we understand the atmosphere and the mood of the poem written by a poet who has actually gone through that specific incident or a series of events or experience? The answer to this is by the use of words or symbols. And what do we call these words and symbols in literature, literary terms? Symbolism and imagery. Now, what is symbolism? Starting with symbolism comes from the word symbol. What is a symbol? Symbol is a sign or an image or a picture of something. And we have an apple. All of you can see an apple in front of you. What does this apple symbolize? Where do we see this symbol in our daily lives or in literature maybe? The answers are given in smaller fonts. Some of the people recognize this sign, this symbol, by associating it with the Bible. If I had been asked this question, I would symbolize it with Snow White, which is the second last option. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Obviously, the story revolved around the apple. Or maybe if you are technologically inspired, you might come up with the Apple company, cell phone, iPhone. So anything which reminds you of the product or anything or a person by seeing just a symbol. That's called symbolism. On the contrary, imagery is the term which is explained by the use of using descriptive language, a language used in depth, describing words, using adjectives, describing a place or a person or the situation in a way that it creates an image. So, imagery comes from the word image, which is formed in our readers' minds when it's formed by reading the poetry. Obviously, we have to imagine whatever is going on. Some examples are given. The first one, it was dark and dim. So, it was dark and dim in the forest. The words, adjectives, spot them for me. Dark and dim. These are the two adjectives which create the imagery of the forest being very dark, gloomy, scary, spooky. So, this is how an imagery is formed. We can take another example. The fresh and juicy orange is very cold and sweet. This is the sense of smell, taste, which is it's arousing in your mouth maybe. It's fresh, it's juicy, it's cold and sweet, so you nearly feel that you're actually drinking an orange juice. Now coming to the very important terminologies of literary techniques, tone versus mood. These words might seem very normal, but they have a very fine difference between them, especially in literary terms, how we use them in literature. Authors use both of these words to convey and to set a feeling or an attitude towards writing. Now, to explain it in more detail, a tone is a feeling of atmosphere the author creates or the author sets in the story towards his subject. So, it can be the author's attitude or the feeling or the state of mind the author actually has towards the subject, towards writing a poetry, writing a short story. And how can a tone be revealed? How do we as audience know that the tone is happy or sad or whatever? By the choice of words. The adjectives play a very important role in this. How the words are used, how the happy words, how the adjectives, how the characters, how the setting is placed in the poem. It all depends on the author. So the author might use a negative or a positive tone. So this is called a tone. And some tones, examples of tones are given in bold fonts. Serious tone, bitter tone, joyful tone, humorous tone, amusing tone, or an angry tone of the author. However, mood is the emotions that we as readers get from the tone of the author. For example, if the tone of the author is angry, how will be our mood as readers? We will be sad, we will be angry or depressed. In fact, we won't be so happy because the author is conveying a very angry and a very harsh tone towards us. That's why we're not feeling happiness. On the other hand, if the author uses a joyful tone by using happy words, a happy place, describing a happy story, we develop a very happy and a joyful mood. So we enjoy the literature work, whatever the author has written. Here's a pictorial illustration of tone and mood. The red figure is the poet, and he speaks out the tone or he delivers a specific tone of whatever he is writing. We reader are the green figures, and we think, there's a think bubble which says mood. So we develop a mood depending on whatever the tone the author is using. Here's a pictorial illustration of tone and mood. The red figure is the poet, and he speaks out the tone or he delivers a specific tone of whatever he is writing. We reader are the green figures, and we think, there's a think bubble which says mood. So we develop a mood depending on whatever the tone the author is using. A very vast list of words of mood as well as tone I've provided here. You can just go through them thoroughly later on and use them in your future poetic answers or related terms. Some of them are new and interesting. Moods might be discontent, meaning dissatisfied, or accomplished, or blissful, or amused mood. Whereas tone varies between positive and negative. A positive tone is a confident tone, a happy tone, a compassionate tone, whereas negative tone might be ambiguous. Ambiguous means confused, a hopeless tone, a tone full of horror, a tone full of doubt, or a frantic tone. You can always look up these words and use them wherever they're applicable. Coming over to the insights of the poem. Insights meaning covering the key points. I have found this very interesting picture and bullets besides it so that you can correlate both of them pertaining to the poem itself. A woman is singing a song softly. It's kind of a flow chart going with the flow of the story. The poet hears the song. Her song takes him to his childhood days. As a child, he was sitting under the piano. His mother was singing a song while she was playing the piano. And while in the meanwhile, he was touching the fingers and feeling secured by his mother. And she smiled and enjoyed, and there was a happy atmosphere around the cozy parlor. Some new words, additional words, and rest of them you may find them in your poetry, in your ORCs themselves. Vista is a series of years or a long period of time. Dusk is evening time. It's a frame of time. Poised feet, meaning the structure of the feet. They were poised, they were balanced. How people actually sit in the posture of playing a piano. This is the term relating to that. Apart from the terms which are already provided to you in your chapters, you can go over them. They're very clear. Other than that, I found these words which could be looked up and devised and explored. Again, dusk, it's these are my version of meanings. Gloomy, darkish, or a dim light. For example, it's dusky around the evening. Glamour, glamour, as the term also says, something glamorous, something attractive, charming. The days of his childhood were glamorous. Hymns, again, the N is silent. You can look up the pronunciation in the dictionary as well. Hymn is a term used to denote a song of praise and joy, meaning it's a type of a song which was played on a piano. This is called a hymn. Cozy parlor, break it into two parts. Cozy means comfortable. Parlor is a confined place. It's not the beauty parlor. It's a parlor can be named as a common room, any private or a confined room. Coming over to the practice task, I want you to self-check yourselves by turning to pages 190 and 191 in your ORCs. It's a very short task. What you have to do is attempt part C, which is words and meanings, 1 and 2 both. In number 1, the instruction is given, find words in the poem for the following. So you have to search for one word which matches these phrases. For example, I'll do the first one for you. Part A says sounds or noise. So which word in the poem matches this meaning, this phrase, sounds or noise? So the answer is clamor. If you turn back, clamor also means sounds and noise. So match one word which is equivalent and the same to the phrases provided. Number 2, you have to add the suffix hood, which is in the inverted commas, to 5 of the words in the yellow box. You can see a yellow box. There are words from A till I. You have to select 5 words out of these, and 5 words are words which will be adding hood after them, the suffix after them. I'll name one for you. For example, part G, likely. You add hood, which becomes a new word, likelihood. For example, if you select D, robbing. You cannot add robbing hood. So that's wrong. So you have to select 5 out of all these, which you will be adding hood to them. Part D, discuss and write, as we used to do in class 2. This is a short one. Just write 30 words, and the question is very relatable to your day-to-day lives. Does some kind of music bring back a memory? Any memory, any childhood memory, any teenage memory, any school memory? Or you can also change the subject. If music doesn't bring back any memory, does any person does that, or any incident, any saying, your mother's quote, or your mother's probably a guideline, your father's guideline, anything you can relate, and which actually flashes back your memory and forces you to remember or recall some important incident in your life. That's about it. So good luck.